the state flag has bothered me for many, many years. My first real recognition of it made me want to go and look into what the background was, because I didn't understand. What does this mean? There's an Indian man standing there, and there's an arm over his head with a sword. What is this all about? And I started looking into the history of it, and then learning more about Metacom, King Philip, learning about the horrific manner that Massachusetts natives were treated, learning that Miles Standish called people together for a meeting and then murdered them. And one of the pieces that I was reading about the imagery was the arm and the sword were that of Miles Standish, directly above this native person when he had this history. And it was like, how can anybody think that this is a worthy symbol of the state of Massachusetts? I understand that, yeah, in the time that this symbol was first created, people didn't have an awareness of Native people as human beings. We're better than that now. And it's time to move forward and look at these old symbols and say, okay, that's gotta change.
Back in 2018, the Gil-Montague School District was facing a community issue, which was to change the mascot. They had it was the Turners Falls Indians, and there was a groundswell of support within the community that reached the school committee to change it, which they did, and they were looking for a new mascot. And it was at a time where across the country this was happening in every state and in a lot of communities. A resident brought up the fact that the state flag might need to be changed as well. Interestingly enough, the small group that picked up on that within the meeting about a mascot brought it to the town of Gill and brought it to a select board meeting and asked us to put it on an annual town meeting on the warrants. I think it was too late to do a petition, and so they came to the select board and asked us, and we said, absolutely, let's put it on and let's let the town vote on the resolution.
So it didn't take very long for the select board to deliberate when this came before them, whether or not to put it on town meeting warrant. All three people on the select board, after a few minutes of deliberation, felt that it was really the right thing to do to bring it before the town.
I recall a town meeting where a warrant article was presented that asked that the legislature form a commission and address the question of whether there should be change in the seal and the flag. And after the reading of the warrant, which took a little bit, there was discussion on the floor, which was really very interesting, because there were a lot of people there that we knew were interested in this effort. And then there was some, I thought, rather surprising opposition.
My name is Gary Borbo, West Guild Road.
Thank you, Gary.
I agree with Mr. Bates and Mr. Gundelfinger in that for a number of reasons. One is this is going to cost. Any way you look at it, there's going to be a commission, there's going to be red tape, there's going to be more bureaucracy to pay for something that none of us in this room were responsible for. If we could go back and change what happened 400 years ago, everyone in this room would probably like to do it. But nothing is going to change what happened. There were some terrible mistakes in judgment and genocide and murder. We all know that. This isn't going to change anything. But by calling someone like me and the rest of the people in this room who are getting on with their lives, paying their taxes, paying their bills, educating their children, taking care of their churches, helping disabled veterans and elderly in nursing homes, we're told we have to worry about this. And I'm not, personally, I don't care about this. I'm worried about all the other important things that are going on around us, not this. This is a form of mind control. Instead of getting on with our lives, this is something I have to worry about now. Or I'm a racist and genocidal. And this idea that we know that's Miles Standish's sword is totally unproven.
The illustrator Edmund Garrett wrote a detailed account of his work designing the current flag and seal of Massachusetts, and he published it in a general circulation periodical called the New England Magazine, Volume 23, in 1900. You can look it up on Google. From his account, we know that the sword above the indigenous person's head on our state flag and seal is copied from Miles Standish's own broadsword kept in the Pilgrim Hall in Plymouth. We know that the belt the indigenous person is shown wearing on the flag and seal is copied from the red flannel belt, believed to have been the belt worn by Metacom, or King Philip, as the English called him, which is kept in the Peabody Museum in Cambridge. We know that the bow depicted on the flag and seal is modeled after a bow taken from an indigenous person shot and killed in Sudbury by a colonist named William Goodnow in 1665. We know that the illustrator Edmund Garrett used the skeleton of a native person unearthed in Winthrop to make sure that he had the correct body proportions, as if native people had different body proportions than the rest of us. We know that the illustrator used a photograph of a Chippewa chief named Thomas Littleshell, who came from Montana, for the facial features of the indigenous person on the flag and seal. Edmund Garrett considered him to be a, quote, fine specimen of an Indian, though he was not from Massachusetts.
And where we came out is that this was an important issue. It has been growing in importance over the years, and it grew in our community very much out of the effort in the school district to change the mascot from a American Indian-based mascot to something else. And that was very contentious in the district, the school district, and understandably so. All of the adults had grown up in that school, and it was part of their school heritage, and the idea of changing it was difficult. On the other hand, it was becoming increasingly clear that the indigenous American community in the area was offended by this and hurt by it, and the children were not well served by it. And so I think what mostly carried the day, as it was carried in that meeting, was this sense that we're not telling people where they have to come out on this. We're simply asking that they address the issue, that be conscious of it, and see where it comes out, and see if this, in my view, rather terrible image of a faux American Indian with a sword over his head should not be reconsidered, and maybe even something a little better might be adopted at some time in the future.
It just really struck a chord and said to me, well, that's a no-brainer. Obviously, who puts a person on their flag with a sword over their head and thinks that's peaceful or kind or compassionate? That was just not in the realm of possibilities. And I think that Massachusetts in particular needs to step forward and say, it is time. It is, in fact, way past time to make amends.
So the neighborhood that I live in, there was actually a massacre there on May 19th, 1676. One of the things that has been said about that 1676 massacre that I don't think has been said enough, and there hasn't been enough conversation on it, is that what that really was that was a refugee camp. That was well into King Philip's War, and there were a number of different tribes that had members in that camp because their own abodes had been destroyed. And it was 300 Indian women, children, and elders that were in that camp when Captain William Turner and his men came in the pre-dawn hours and started firing into wigwams and killing people. The town was named for the person that came in and killed these women and children and elders. You know, that was becoming part of the conversation. We were having conversations at the same time about the mascot in the schools. When I was younger, I went to high school at Mohawk and I went to high school at Frontier, and we both had Indian mascots at those schools. And I would have relished the opportunity to have the conversations, to have the back and forth about, you know, should we use caricatures of these people for mascots in our schools or not? And there were so many people that were upset that we were doing that at the time. And my feeling was, you know, no, this is really a good thing to be doing. And this was a really easy decision to make, in my mind, to change the mascot of the school. And that would bring some momentum to doing more important things, like even changing the name of the town so that it's not named after somebody who did things that would be called war crimes in today's society. And even larger than that is the issue of what we have on our state flag. What a conversation changer this could be.
My particular village is the village of Mashpee, which means Big Pond. My folks live along the edges of the Mashpee Pond and the Mashpee River. That's the name that we take from ourselves. We are the people of that land. So we are the people that have always been connected to that land ever since the ice receded and revealed the new land under the sheets of ice. And when human beings were able to walk on that ground, we were the first people to do that. We were also some of the first folks to experience colonization from Europe. We are the people of Thanksgiving, of the 1621 agreement with the passengers of the Mayflower. They signed that we should obey our laws and go to our people for judgment, and they should obey their laws and go to their people for judgment. And that we should aid and assist each other if we had troubles, if we had come under attack. And we honored those agreements as people for a long time. In fact, I think we still have managed to honor those agreements. Our folks have fought in every American conflict, every colonial conflict. They've been Wampanoag people. And that's a long history of honoring that treaty of mutual aid and assistance. We didn't always fare well with the other direction of things, though. People have been allowed to come and take our land, to murder us, to hunt us for scalp bounties, to cheat us out of our children, to do many other different things that were able to bring harm to us as a people. And they never honored the other side of that agreement, to hold their people to their own laws even.
In the original 1629 seal of the Massachusetts Bay Company, the indigenous person is shown with one downward pointed arrow, no quiver, indicating, quote, a pacified Indian. He had a speech bubble with the words, "Come over and help us," coming out of his mouth in the original seal. Now, the indigenous person still has one downward pointed arrow and no quiver, but he's shown standing above a Latin phrase, a motto, which translates, "She seeks a quiet peace under the sword." Native people were never consulted in the design process, as Garrett appropriated their body parts and images for our state flag and seal. Our state symbols were never meant to be honoring Native people. Indeed, Garrett called Indigenous people poor savages in his report in the New England Magazine in 1900. But the significance of the choice of Miles Standish's broadsword brandished over the head of an Indigenous person wearing the belt of King Philip on our state flag and seal is not lost on the Native people who live in the Commonwealth today.
We're very fortunate to still be in our territory, in our homeland. Not every tribe can say that. Plymouth Rock is in our territory, and we're still fortunate enough to be able to live in that territory and live in our homeland. It's something that's not a common story for Native people of the Americas, sadly. So we're pretty fortunate in that. You know? However, with that, we have lived under occupation for a long time as well. We've lived as occupied people from the English colonial system, from the American federal system, from the Massachusetts state system. They've got that sword over the flag on the flag over the head of King Philip. And it's really symbolic, it's not just the symbolism of the power over the people, but the fact of the matter is that they chopped his head off. They put it on a pike, and they displayed it in the center of town for over 50 years. So this is not just metaphor. They actually literally cut his head off. They beheaded him. And so that sword over the head, this was a reality of our people and what we lived under. It's what we lived under fear of having folks come and take our scalp and bring it in for prize money as proof of death of an Indian, any Indian. You got one price for an adult, you got half of that for an old person, a woman, or a child. So this is what we've lived under. We've lived under that sword. We've lived under that sword for a long time, and it's part of why it's so important to change that flag, because it's a constant daily reminder in each state building that we walk into of the history that we've lived under as Wampanoag people here in our homeland, who welcomed folks from other parts of the world, who fed them when they were sick. And our teachings tell us that that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to treat people with compassion. We're supposed to treat other people like human beings.
The one thing that's interesting, about town meetings in any town, and I think the town of Orange, I think people are very well informed and often very responsive and really willing to debate things and talk about things and learn about things. Mm-hmm. It's just depending on if there's any particularly controversial issues or things that happen to be on the overall warrant, that will sway who actually shows up to a town meeting, which can then sway a vote.
Right. But in this case, it was really pretty simple because Deb and I presented the proposal, which wasn't to change it instantly, but to set up a committee to study the issue and make proposals. And then when we asked the town clerk to hold out the flag, the state flag, so people could really look at it while we described it, I think that made a really big impression.
Yeah, that visual was huge.
This is the way it has been for nearly 400 years, but you can help change this. And with the help of town meetings like the ones that took place in Gill and Orange in 2018, and now in 46 more municipalities from Provincetown to the Berkshires, where people have gotten together, gathered 10 signatures, placed these resolutions on the town meeting warrant, and taken formal votes to change the flag and seal of Massachusetts. In the meantime, this is still the state flag and seal of Massachusetts, which you will see on the auditorium stage of every elementary school in the Commonwealth, which you will see stenciled on the side of every state patrol vehicle, and which flies in back of the judge on the dais of every courtroom, and which is contained in the
center of the highway welcome signs for every city and town. When you come into your town and it says welcome to Lunenburg or welcome to Bolton or welcome to Sturbridge, look right in the middle and there's a sword poised over a native person's head. Every communication that you get from the state government, from your legislature, from the Secretary of State, detailing how you might wish to vote on referendum questions in the upcoming election. Smack in the middle of the front page will be this drawn sword over a native person's head. How long will Massachusetts fly this flag of white supremacy? You and your town meeting can help us change that.
I think it was really easy for everyone in Gill that was at town meeting to understand that issue and to say, yes, it's time to make a change.
I just have to say that I do care about murder in our history, and Mr. Moderator, I do care about genocide in our history, and I think it would be shocking to send to the legislature a vote from this town that suggests that we don't care. I really think that would be terrible.
With that, we brought it to the town meeting, and it passed, and this is, to me, is a really wonderful sort of Cinderella story of how democracy can work at the grassroots level. You can have a small group of people that become activists, take on a cause, and it may start in a very small town like Gill, and then mushroom from there, which is a wonderful way of seeing how democracy can work from the bottom up.
Do we not want the Commonwealth to stand for something better now? Look at the history of this. Look at the imagery of it and what it is saying about the state. And is that what you want to say about Massachusetts? Do you want to say that Massachusetts is all about subjugating the original inhabitants and being fierce and warlike? Or do you want to talk about the beauty of the state and the commerce, the cod and the cranberries and the corn? Do you want to talk about the view from Mount Sugarloaf? Do you want to talk about maple syrup? Do you want to talk about Horace Mann or Sojourner Truth? Or do you want to talk about racism and violence? And I think a thinking person is going to stop and especially if they've never understood where this particular imagery comes from, if they don't understand about what happened with King Philip and Weetamoo, if they don't know why this arm and broadsword are so offensive, when it's explained to them, that should be an automatic, oh, no, we can't have that. We've got to change this.